matter who you are at some point, maybe early, maybe later, but our bodies are gonna wear down, you know. And I guess part of what you guys are in is in the business of fighting that off for as long as you can.
Welcome to the Girls Talk Healthy Aging podcast, where we dive deep into pressing health and fitness issues facing aging women. I'm Alli Kerr.
And I'm Shawna Kaminski. And together we'll bring candid conversations, expert advice, and personal stories that will inspire and empower you on your own wellness journey.
Well, I was just thinking about the ladies that you've had that have come and said to you, I have to do this because I want to be able to get up and down from the floor and play with my grandchildren. I think it's thinking ahead and going, you know what, when I'm 75, I'm not going to be able to move around as quickly as I did when I was 35. And that's probably no matter how good a shape, that you're in. That some of those things are eventually, time comes for all of us. One of my patients told me that Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who you are at some point, maybe early, maybe later, but our bodies are gonna wear down, and I guess part of what you guys are in is in the business of fighting that off for as long as you can.
Peter Attia, in his book Outlive, he talks about, hey, if you say, hey, I want to be traveling when I retire, but you don't have the strength to lift 20 pounds over your head. How are you going to lift 40 pounds over your head? Or whatever you're planning on doing, you'd better be able to do double of it now. And even then, there's going to be some age-related decline. It is undeniable because Father Time is undefeated, but we can go down fighting. But I feel like there has to be some, like I have some clients that are really fighting. It's like I don't have the body that I had in my 20s. It's like, but that is a kind of a fruitless fight, because you're never going to have that back. So there has to be a healthy balance between some level of, acceptance. Loss of youth is a huge issue with women. And I feel women are hit a little bit more than men, but maybe that's because I'm a woman and I'm feeling it pretty strongly myself.
No, I think that's perfect. And the two things that I see is that women tend to grieve the loss of fitness, of looks, of appearance, and men tend to grieve the loss of utility. And what I mean by that is so many times I have male patients who retire and are dead in less than a year, and it's because their identity is wrapped up in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And for women, a lot of times I think it's obviously you do so many things too, but so what society puts on you is that you are what you appear to be, and so much is tied to your appearance, and then so much with men is applied to the utility. If you're not strong enough to kind of do the things you used to be able to do, then you're not worth anything anymore. And we buy into those lies.
And if you're a man and you're not bringing home money, or, you don't get up in the morning with purpose to go to a job. So I from my perspective, and I want to get yours, Robby, is that we all need to do some thinking of, some planning for this. What are we going to be doing? Who are we going to be, who will we be when we have wrinkles or when we are retired? What would you say to help people deal with those losses?
I think the first thing I would say is to remember that we're human beings and not human doings. And so, we need to recognize that our value is in all of who we are, which includes this wealth of experience and wisdom that you've gained over a lifetime of making mistakes, of having successes, of having failures, and learning hopefully from both. And you bring all of that to the table now. So, the old joke is that a lot of employers want to hire somebody who's 30 years old with 20 years of experience. That's because you don't want to have to watch people make mistake after mistake. At the same time, you want to have them young so that you can have them for a long time. But that's just not the way life is. the way life is that we accumulate this experience as we go along. And so, part of the value of being older is that you've tried in, different ways, and what works better now. You can make better decisions because at some point you didn't make better decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully you've learned. But then we all know the people that keep making the same mistake. And that happens too.
Well, right. I mean, y'all see that all the time because, they come and tell you about the 7 different diets that they've tried and the different, uh, exercise scams or whatever the latest, greatest thing is that you've tried. And, I think it's natural because what we all want to hear is that we can have things better and it won't cost us much of anything. You
Yeah.
know, it won't take
Time.
any effort, which is why we will much more readily just take a pill or something than we would to actually begin the work of more slowly and gradually, moving into something that's sustainable, health wise.
I think the analogy as well of moving through loss or grief might be similar to getting fit as well, because I know that when people are beginning their health journey, they really want it all now. I want the bikini body. I want to be super strong. I want to be able to run the marathon. I want to be able to lift the weight, do the ninja things, right? Without putting in the work. And people also experiencing loss or grief, they want to just be past it. But what Allie and I say in terms of being able to sustain results, it's the lessons you learn on the path to losing the weight, to learning the skills, to building the strength. And so maybe this is a good analogy for moving through loss and grief as well, that the lessons you learn on as you move through it, that's what sustains you and brings happiness over time. Would you agree, Robby?
Yeah, and I've equated kind of going through the grieving process, learning to grieve is learning how to swim. Because the first thing that you're taught is actually to float. To lay your arms back, get in a position, and that you will naturally float. And that's important to know because if I first teach you how to swim, at some point you're going to get tired. And if you don't know that you can float, you're going to be in trouble. And I think going through grief is the same way, is to understand that, you know, you do float naturally, whether you believe it or not. And you think you've got to flail around and kick your arms and legs but sometimes it's okay to realize that, okay, I need to rest and I can just float.
That is a great analogy. I am going to steal that because that also goes towards health, right? To learning health, upgrading our health and lifestyle.
Right. I mean, you gotta walk before you can run, and run before you can fly. I don't think we get to skip steps, because if you do, you miss out, as you said, on some of the lessons and some of the things and the strength that you need to build up. You're not ready to fly yet. I mean, even this morning, Alli and I were doing our workout, and to tell them what we were doing, it was the half Turk get
We're
ups.
doing a Turkish get up.
Yeah. Well, Robbie had to start on the remedial program for the. So Robbie was doing a 1/8 Turk get up because I mean it's true because a lot of times Alli will say to me, we'll start an exercise and she sees me over there out of form, and I've had to learn because at first it used to frustrate me. I would get mad because I just wanted to be able to do it. And I have slowly learned, and I think she'll agree to this. Now I have slowly begun to learn, and I listen to her a little bit more, and I go, okay, I just need to try this without weight, and let's just see if I can do the balance part of this first. Let me just see if I can master this first, and I can run later on, but I've got to be able to crawl and I've got to be able to walk before I can just get up and sprint. That's
Yeah.
been hard for me to accept, but it's true.
Yeah.
You did you did great. He did a great job. He did he did great on those 1/8, 1/4 Turkish get ups today.
Good thing we don't have video evidence of that. Uh,
What about, and I love making like we are talking about some kind of heavy stuff. Roy, do you have any? Well, I know you have a ton of stories of just because you've been doing this for 20 something years of dealing with people, family members. Oh, I know. I've got a funny story that's coming to my mind that will lighten the mood on grief. And I'll let you share about the ringtone that you used to have for me on
Oh
your
my.
phone.
Okay. So I do not allow my phone to jingle, to ring, ever when I'm working. So 20 years, 20 years of doing this, my phone has rang exactly one time while I was working. I never allow that to happen because I want people to know that wherever I'm at, that with them is where I don't have anywhere else to be. You know, even if I really am on a schedule, I at least try to present as if I'm with you and that's all that matters in the world right now. So I don't ever allow my phone to ring. Unbeknownst to me, my lovely wife had some time ago gotten into my phone and had changed her name in my phone to Big Booty. It was kind of a riff off of a line in a song that we were making fun of, where the guy's kind of rapping and sings and says, "I got you in my phone under Big Booty," and so she changed her name in my phone to Big Booty. Well, I kind of played off of that, and I'm like, "Oh, that's funny," and so I changed her ringtone to be something different when it would ring, and it was just for her. And so she calls, and I happened to be with this family. The father had just died about an hour before, and I was with this lady. She's about 38, 39 years old, and she and the professional caregiver that had been taking care of the man were there. And it was just this very solemn time, and I'm kind of, had my arm on both of their shoulders, and we're just talking about how much he meant to them. And my phone goes off, and I hear, "I like big butts and I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny." Yeah. Yes, it was Sir Mix-a-Lot. And I was absolutely mortified. And luckily, the woman smiled and turns and looks at the caregiver that had been the caregiver for her father and said, "Well, I guess he likes big butts and he's not willing to tell a story about it."
Oh, they took it well then.
But one
Sometimes,
time in 20 years, my phone rings, and it's that.
yeah, and then how do you explain that? My wife is a prankster.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
threw her under all the way under the bus, backed under her a couple more times.
yeah, back and forth, rolling over. Yeah.
Uh,
Sometimes a bit of brevity or levity is what you need.
it was actually perfect for them in that moment. It really was. And like I said, I think the fact that she could laugh let her know that she was going to be okay.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Any other funny stories that come to mind that we could finish up with?
Oh gosh, I mean, I could tell you 100 if all we did was, funny stories on me. Oh, I'll tell you one. Okay, so I had this group of ladies. They were all sisters. One was 91, one was 89, one was 87. They all lived together. The 89-year-old was taking care of the 91-year-old and the 87-year-old. The 87-year-old had a lot of dementia, and you really had to watch her all the time. She would wander around the house. She had to change the locks because she would wander out. The 91-year-old, who was our hospice patient, was in a hospital bed back in the room. I came to visit them and was sitting down just talking to the caregiver's sister, who was 89 herself, as I said. And the phone rang, and she said, "Oh, I've got to take this. It's the nurse." And so she took it for a second. Well, while she's talking, the demented 87-year-old sister comes over and sits in my lap and pretty much is sticking her tongue in my ear. And you can't just like throw an 87-year-old lady off of you. So I'm just trying to handle it as composed as I can. And thankfully, the lady was on the phone. She turns around and goes, "Verna, get off that man."
Oh,
And then when I went to leave that day, she was following me, and her sister literally had to do the bolt lock with the locking key to keep her from following me out to my car. So yeah,
you
I,
are pretty desirable though, Robbie. I mean, just ask Allie.
like I said, if you're over 85, I'm magic. Allie will tell you, any other age, not so much.
Well, I think 40 plus, plus, plus. You're working for it's working for Alli, so that's all that matters.
Uh,
Yeah,
Um,
he's pretty or very desirable for the ladies that he goes to
yeah,
see.
well,
They
a lot
love
of it is
him.
they don't see a lot of men. Healthcare is, I don't know, probably 95, 97% female. Especially if you don't account for the doctors. The nurses and aides and all that.
yeah,
So they
yeah.
just don't see a whole lot of men. And if you go to a facility, memory care facility, or an assisted living or a nursing home, I mean, look around. The population is going to be a minimum 70, 75, 80%, female. And it is kind of funny because, you'll see them fight over that 20% of guys that are still there. I mean, I've gone to tables where, there are three women, they're all trying to, share their extra cookie with the man at the table or whatever. you know, it's just very interesting what flirting becomes when you get to a certain age.
Well, Alli, you better up your game at home. Otherwise, you're going to lose this man.
I'm gonna have to go buy a lot of cookies.
Right?
Yeah.
Think that's one benefit that women have is that we are more, and you would know this better, Robby. I feel like women tend to be more likely to lean on each other than men in times of loss.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked with Ali about this before. Back when I used to do a lot of grief support groups, the women came to talk things through and to find strength from one another. So often the men came to find a woman
Ah,
at the grief support group, and so
interesting.
we had to kind of head that off a little bit. Because otherwise, the women would stop coming because they thought they're just going to get hit on. But in defense of the men there, they find such a hard time. I'll tell you this quick story. I had a man years ago, a man and woman that I was visiting, and it was the woman who was that was dying. And when I got into the house, this guy had really she had done everything for him their entire lives. So she took she handled the checkbook, she did all the cooking, she did all the cleaning, she paid all the bills. I mean, she just handled everything. And so I went over there just one day, and as I walked into the door, the man said, "Can I get you a glass of tea?" And I was like, "No, no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm fine." And then he asked again, "No, no, it's no trouble. I can get you a glass of tea." And I was like, "No, no, I'm fine." And his wife just kind of gave me this glancing look, and she goes, "Robby, have some tea." And as he went, I said, "Okay, I'll have some tea." And as he went over to prepare the tea, uh, she told me, she said, he's 87 years old and he's never brewed tea a day in his life. He wants you to have tea just to show me that he knows how to do it now. So I mean,
Oh,
that seems like such a small thing, but it was important for both of them. It was for them to both realize that yes, she's going to be moving on, and he's going to be okay. She needed
oh,
that. He needed
I
that.
needed that.
And it
Yeah.
was important for me to help, acknowledge that with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice story. Well, my wish, and like on top of that, would be that anybody that is experiencing loss of any sort, I would encourage you to find support, whether that's through a friend. I know that women in particular are great at leaning on each other, but also not discounting professional help, because sometimes just having that person like yourself that is objective, that doesn't have any motives on your own other than I'm just here for caring, I'm just here to help you move on, that can be very helpful. I know that I've been honored to be able to help my friend going through cancer because I didn't have any motives on my own other than her interest, and family members have their own feelings they're dealing with, so finding professional help can be helpful as well.
And let me just add real quick, since you said that if you have a larger employer that you work for, virtually every larger employer has some sort of employee assistance program, which generally gives you at least 3 visits with some sort of healthcare professional to kind of talk through those sorts of things. And most of the time, all your professional has to do is put in a request, and then they can get up to like another 10 visits. So that's something that's available to most people. And if that's not available to you, if you're no longer working, if that's not available to you, there's a hospice in your area. And every hospice has a bereavement program, and they are open to anybody. So it doesn't matter. You don't ever have had to have had a loved one cared for by that hospice or been a part of that program. Anybody can call one of those hospices, and there will be a bereavement coordinator that will be happy to meet with you virtually, or phone, come to your house, whatever. And they would be happy to, if they can't help you in the first few visits, point you in the right direction. But these are things that are free and available to almost anybody. So you just have to do a little bit of work, but it is out there for you.
And let me say, our
Right.
podcast is in 12 countries. So in the US, Robbie's talking about US. I don't know
Yes.
different places. Actually, our podcast is available in more countries, but we have listeners I know in at least 12 countries so far. So that is a US thing. I don't know, Shawna, about Canada and other places, but check and see what's out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's really important information, because I'm sure that there's something similar in other areas as well. So with that, I think that's a great thing to end on, is knowing that there is professional help, even for those that may be financially strained, to be able to find that at no cost.
Thanks for listening. You'll find me, Alli, on Instagram at Alli Kerr Fitness.
And you'll find me, Shawna, on Instagram at Shawna Kaminski. Feel free to pop us a DM with questions and or feedback.
Until next time, be healthy and be happy.